All right, class, we have a very serious topic to talk about today, and that is plagiarism. We're going to go over the definition of plagiarism, give you some examples, and talk about how to avoid it. If you know what plagiarism is, it becomes very easy to avoid it and not get the penalty. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is to steal and pass off the ideas of words of another as one's own, or to use another's production without crediting the source, or to commit literary theft, or to present as new and original an idea or product derived from an existing source. In other words, plagiarism is an act of fraud. It involves both stealing someone else's work and lying about it afterwards. Whether accidental or intentional, plagiarism is a very serious violation. And yes, you can plagiarize accidentally, and we'll talk about how. So there are several types of plagiarism, 3 to be exact. The first is accidental plagiarism, intentional plagiarism, and the third is self-plagiarism, also known as double dipping or dovetailing. And yes, this is a thing. I know it seems a little bizarre. Well, how can I plagiarize myself? We'll talk about it. Accidental plagiarism is often just committed because you use a source and you forget to put the quotation marks around it, or you forget the citation. Every source that we use, and we will be using sources, you must be quoted and cited correctly in accordance with MLA formatting. So if you do not have quotation marks around the section that you have used, or a citation, you are basically saying that whatever is in this part of the essay is my own intellectual property. If that isn't true, it's plagiarism. So make sure you always have quotation marks, make sure you always have a citation, and if you do decide to paraphrase, which is where you basically don't quote it directly, but you summarize it, you need to make sure that you do so correctly, because if you change what the author says when you paraphrase, that can also be an academic violation. So intentional plagiarism is definitely the worst kind. And this is where you basically, you do it to get around some of the requirements for the assignment. This can mean eliminating a citation for information that comes from another source, or simply not providing one. Using an incorrect citation so that I can't find the right source. Let's say you used something that you didn't think was legit, so you used an incorrect citation to try to make me think it came from somewhere else. That would also be a violation. Or it could be simple cheating, like using another student's work as your own, asking another student to write your essay for you, or purchasing an essay from an internet website or a fellow student. Doesn't matter if you paid for it or not. If it comes from another student and it doesn't come from you, that is plagiarism. A little bit more about intentional plagiarism. It doesn't matter if the essay came from a free website. Some people think that distinction matters. It really doesn't. If you copy a quotation without using quotation marks intentionally to make it sound as though it's from you, that's plagiarism, right? You have basically tried to pass off someone else's work, or work from a website or a blog or something. Another way you can plagiarize intentionally is through excessive collaboration with another person. This includes excessive editing, and I have to stress excessive collaboration because it's very important. A lot of students don't get that this is actually plagiarism. Excessive collaboration is when you and your friend put your Wonder Twin powers together and you decide to work together on an assignment. A lot of times what ends up happening is the essays that you produce are very similar, so similar in fact that I read them both in conjunction and I think, my, this sounds like it was written by the same person. So it's very important to understand that even if you work together on an assignment and produce the assignment independently, if it is way, way too similar and obvious that key ideas were shared, that is excessive collaboration. It counts as plagiarism. Also, when you have people edit your essay, you have to be very careful. When you ask someone to edit your essay, you don't want to ask them to correct every little thing that's wrong with it. You want to instead ask them to give you some pointers as to what they think it is you need to correct. Hey man, I noticed you're missing a few commas here and there. Or, oh, I saw that maybe your introduction was a little bit too short. You can't go in there and correct everything that's wrong with the essay because you're basically doing the work for them. Anytime you have someone else doing the work for you, or you taking someone else's work and passing it off as your own, that's plagiarism. Unless, of course, as I've said before, you credit the source, and you do that with quotation marks and citations. Also, it doesn't matter if you change the words around. A lot of people take stuff from other sources and they think, well, if I switch some words around, if I change the way that, get my handy thesaurus and go through and pick synonyms for various words. If you do that, it's still plagiarism. And not only that, but you're probably still going to get caught because the plagiarism check that we use looks for syntax as well as the words themselves, meaning not only the words, but the order in which they're in. Now, could you theoretically change the order of the words and the words themselves? Well, yes, but isn't that a lot of work? And wouldn't it be easier for you to just write the stuff yourself, right? Okay, so that brings us to this tricky one here, and that is self-plagiarism. So let me wait for the slide to load. It's going to take a while. Self-plagiarism is just as serious as any other type of plagiarism and carries the same consequences. This type of plagiarism occurs when you copy words without citation from a paper you had previously written, when you paraphrase information from your previously written paper, or when you submit a complete paper that was without changes. A lot of times literature classes will assign assignments that you may have had before in terms of things you have to read or topics you have to write on. Like maybe your high school essay, a high school English class asked you to write an argumentative essay. I'm going to ask you to write an argumentative essay. So you might be thinking, well, I can just take my argumentative essay from my high school class and recycle it for this class. You can't do that because you have to treat each individual assignment as a unique assignment and something that you have to treat as, it's like, you jump over the hurdles and you have to jump over the hurdle. There's no skipping hurdles, right? So if you try to skip a hurdle by bringing one of your old assignments out of the dustbin, that is technically plagiarism. And if I catch you doing that, it incurs the same penalty, which is a 0 on the assignment and a possible referral to the Dean of Student Affairs. So it's very important that if you look over the syllabus, you think, man, I've written an argumentative essay, or man, I've written an essay on 9.4 already, or man, I've done this or that. Get that temptation out of your head, because in the event that I catch you, it's the same penalty. And if you've ever used a program like Turnitin before, or one of these databases, or any of it got put on the internet somehow, there are lots of ways which that can come up, and it can really turn around and cause you some problems. So make sure that you resist the temptation to recycle any work that you have previously done. Now, there are some things that are not plagiarism. So let's talk about what isn't plagiarism. We will be using sources from other places. So for example, when you do your argumentative essay, which is the second essay of the semester in my class, you will write an argument, and you will use sources from credible people like scientists and experts and stuff like that, and you will use their work and say, see, these experts agree with me. That's okay, because when you do that, what you do is you use quotation marks to show that it isn't your own words, right? And you use a citation, which is a little bit of information that comes after the quotation that allows me to know exactly where that came from based on its correspondence to your works cited page. And the works cited page goes at the end of the essay. It is a list that contains all of the sources that you use. So if you have the quotations and the citations, you can use other stuff. Well, I want to quote the stuff directly. You don't really have to. You can paraphrase what is. I will say that paraphrasing is a little bit more dangerous, because when you change the words on the page themselves, you run the risk of changing the meaning. If you change the meaning, that can be a problem. So just make sure your paraphrasing is accurate in that it doesn't actually change the content of what's being said. And always, always, always include a parenthetical citation. In our in forthcoming lectures about MLA formatting, I will tell you about those citations and how exactly to do them so you can eliminate that risk. Always use quotation marks for words copied directly from a source, include a citation, and you will avoid the plagiarism penalty because you tell me where it came from. It doesn't matter really where the stuff came from. It can come from the internet. You can use sources, credible articles, books, or you can use information from an internet source. As long as the quotation marks and citations are there, you've got it. You can also, you do not have to use a citation unless, I'm sorry, using a citation for all information that is not common knowledge, including visual images, charts, and graphs. Common knowledge, though, does not require a citation because it's known to the general reader. So, for example, if you're writing an essay and you say, the sun is a ball of gas burning millions of miles away, that is a known fact. You don't have to break out the science book and go and quote the description of the sun as a giant ball of gas burning millions of miles away. I know that it is. You know that it is. Unless you think the sun is something else, in which case, you know, you're wrong. We all know that that's the case. So there's no need to cite that. However, any information that isn't common knowledge should be cited. So make sure you apply that rule when you're deciding, well, do I really need to cite information? Do I need to look up a source to prove this? The answer to that question is this common knowledge or not? Because if it isn't, you've got to show where it came from, and you've got to be able to verify that it's true from a source that's credible, right? Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the penalties for plagiarism before we wrap it up here. The penalty in my class for plagiarizing any assignment, cheating on any assignment, copying, whatever you want to call it, any kind of academic trickery in my class carries the same penalty. Whatever assignment it is, be that a major essay, a discussion post, or a quiz, if you get caught cheating, plagiarizing, whatever, you get a 0 on that assignment. Now, in the event of the essays, that's a very big chunk of the grade, okay? Each essay is worth 20%. If you get a 0 on the essay, it's very hard for you to pass the class. So a lot of students, when they see they got a 0 for plagiarizing, sometimes they didn't even know that they plagiarized because you could do it by accident. And sometimes they just deny it because who wants to lose that portion of the grade? If you deny that you plagiarized, in other words, if I say you did and you say you didn't, then I will send the assignment over to the Dean of Student Affairs for a second opinion. The reason that I do this is because I cannot be accusing students wrong. Impossible for me. If you did not plagiarize and I say that you did, I'm going to hand it over to the dean. In the event that the dean sides with me, it's very likely that I will pursue a code of conduct violation because that would mean that you lied to me intentionally and then were proven wrong. So my advice to you is if you plagiarize an assignment and you get caught and you know you did it, just admit it because it's easier for you that way. That way you don't get the code of conduct violation. It can get pretty nasty though. Like if you become a repeat offender for plagiarizing, you might have to go and talk to the dean. You might have to have some kind of, it depends on where you go to school, but if you go to other colleges and stuff, a lot of times there can be like a faculty panel and like a tribunal, and it's very, very not fun. So if you want to do well in this class, my advice to you is do not cut any corners. Do every assignment, do it independently. Use your own brain. Don't use the brain of your friends or your buddy from high school that was really good at English. I know he may need a few extra bucks, but just avoid the temptation. Because if you get caught doing this, it's going to cause you way more problems. And I have a 0 tolerance. So if you plagiarize, it's a 0. The answer to can I make it up? Oh, please, for the love of everything. No. The answer is no. You cannot. So it is best to know it, and that's how you avoid it. So remember, just to rehash, if you use information that comes from another place other than your own brain, you have to have quotations or at the very least correct paraphrasing, and also include parenthetical citations with the citation information. That way you can avoid the plagiarism penalty. And just so you understand that I am not a hypocrite, here is the source for where I got much of the information for this slideshow. And as a bit of comic relief on a very serious subject matter, here is a picture of my ridiculous rooster. Isn't he wonderful? Okay, so thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great week.